When people think of agriculture, they think of big, clunky tractors making their way across a field, or farmers figuring out ways for their land to generate more profit. Although I have been exposed to conventional agriculture and find it interesting, nothing compares to my kind of agriculture. The agriculture that I'm interested in involves natural resource and land management, but above all, it involves trees, lots of them. For thousands of years, old-growth forests have continued to make Northern California their natural origin. Ancient redwoods, Douglas firs, western hemlocks, Sitka spruce, and true firs dot the state's landscape and provide a home to vulnerable habitat. 1850s gold rush heightened the hysteria of Western travelers, causing populations to skyrocket. As more and more people entered California in search of work, profit, and a permanent lifestyle, new innovative techniques were implemented to conveniently harvest and transport lumber around the state. Old techniques of using axes, saws, horses, and oxen progressed to a statewide railroad system. At this point in California's history, it took less than 60 years for timber harvesting companies to reduce over 2 million acres of old-growth redwood forests to only hundreds of thousands of acres. As the rush of Euro-Americans continued to rapidly increase, public domain forests transformed into privately owned lands. Publicly owned lands left behind from the already taken privately owned lands were preserved by the Save the Redwoods League, a nonprofit organization responsible for purchasing vast tracts of redwood forests for protection purposes in 1918. But by the 1960s, roughly 90% of original redwoods in Northern California had been lost to the logging industry. Not only are California's forests home to diverse wildlife and vegetation, but their roots have held tightly to the state's landscape for generations. Today, citizens are concerned with the fate of wildlife as timber harvesting makes its way across California. A few topics of controversy include clear-cutting techniques and the threatened northern spotted owl. Today, 57 million acres of land within range of the owl in the Pacific Northwest are heavily considered when timber harvesting opportunities arise. While timber harvesting on public lands is regulated by both the state and the federal government, timber harvesting on private lands is regulated by the state of California. In 1945, California's first Forest Practice Act was established in order to require that anyone with the intent of cutting merchantable timber must first notify a California state forester. To accurately represent and capture the public's growing interest of environmental conservation, the Nejedly Zeeberg Forest Practice Act was enacted in 1973 to replace the 1945 Forest Practice Act. The new act ensures that logging is done in a manner that will preserve and protect our fish, wildlife, forests, and streams. Under the Forest Practice Act, if a private landowner would like to harvest timber on their land, the landowner must submit a timber harvest plan prepared by a California registered professional forester to CAL FIRE. To ensure logging operations are in full compliance with the approved timber harvest plan and the Forest Practice Act, CAL FIRE Unit Forest Practice Inspectors conduct regular visits to mills throughout California, issuing citations or shutting down operations if necessary. Although timber harvest plans require extensive time and work to compile, this document serves to allow for new business opportunities and as a law to protect California's most precious resources. Both the Forest Practice Act and timber harvest plans act as a middle ground to satisfy California loggers and to fulfill concerned citizens' desire for environmental policy reform.